Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I am Dr. Razia. In our today's lecture, we will discuss about the blood volume and the extracellular fluid volume and its regulation. So, the blood volume remain almost exactly constant. Either there is extreme changes in the fluid intake. The reason for that is number one, a slight change in the blood volume causes a marked change in the cardiac output, and number two, a slight change in the cardiac output causes a large change in the blood pressure, and number third is the slight change in blood pressure causes a large change in the urine output. So these factors work together to provide effective feedback control of the blood volume. The same control mechanism operate whenever there is a blood loss because of hemorrhage. In this case, fall in blood pressure along with nervous and hormonal factors, we will discuss it in detail. So first we look on the distribution of the extracellular fluid between the interstitial spaces and the vascular system. So you can see in this picture the approximate relationship between the extracellular fluid volume and the blood volume. It is showing nearly a linear relation in normal range, but also showing the failure of blood volume to continue rising when the extracellular fluid volume becomes excessive. When this condition occurs, the additional extracellular fluid volume resides in the interstitial spaces and the edema results. So, in this picture you can see that the blood and increase the blood volume. The remainder is distributed to the interstitial spaces when the extracellular fluid volume rises more than 30 to 50% above normal. Almost all the additional fluid goes into the interstitial spaces and little remain in the blood. This distribution occurs because once the interstitial fluid pressure rises from its normal negative value to become positive, the tissue interstitial spaces become complaint and large amount of fluid then pour into the tissue without interstitial fluid pressure rising much more. In other words, the safety factor against edema owing to rises interstitial fluid pressure that counteract fluid accumulation in the tissue is lost once the tissue becomes highly complaint. While under the normal condition for interstitial spaces action as an overflow reservoir for excessive fluids, sometimes increasing in volume 10 to 30 liters, this situation causes the edema. So to summarize, the extracellular fluid volume and blood volume are often controlled simultaneously, but the quantitative amount of fluid distribution between the interstitium and blood depends on physical properties of the circulation and the interstitial spaces, as well as on the dynamics of the fluid exchange through the capillary membranes. So, principal factors that can cause accumulation in the interstitial space are number one, the increased capillary hydrostatic pressure, number second, the decreased plasma colloid osmotic pressure, number third, increased permeability of the capillaries, and number four, the obstruction of lymphatic vessels. So, how they can be controlled? They may be controlled through the nervous system and also by the hormonal factor. Nervous and hormonal factor increase the effectiveness of the renal body fluid feedback control. So sympathetic nervous system control of the renal excretion by the arterial baroreceptors and low pressure stretch receptor reflexes. And second, there is an important role of the angiotensin II in controlling renal excretion. When sodium intake is elevated above normal, renin secretion is decreased, causing the decreased angiotensin II formation. On the other hand, when sodium intake is reduced below normal, it increases the angiotensin II, causing sodium and the water retention. So you can see in this flow chart or the graphic representation the effect of excessive angiotensin II formation or blocking angiotensin II formation on the renal pressure natriuresis curve. Note that the high level of the angiotensin II formation decreases the slope of pressure natriuresis, making blood pressure very sensitive to changes in sodium intake. If the blockage of the angiotensin II formation, which can shift the pressure natriuresis to lower blood pressure. Note that when the angiotensin control of natriuresis is fully functional, the pressure natriuresis curve is steep towards the normal curve, indicating that only minor changes in the blood pressure that are necessary to increase sodium excretion and sodium intake is raised. In contrast, when angiotensin level cannot decrease in response to increased sodium intake, as occur in some hypertensive patients who are impaired ability to decrease renin secretions, the pressure curve is not nearly as steep. So when sodium intake is raised, much greater increase in the arterial pressure to increase sodium excretion and maintain sodium balance. For example, in most patients, tenfold increase in sodium intake causes increase only a few millimeter mercury in the arterial pressure. Wherever in subject who cannot suppress angiotensin II formation in response to excessive sodium, the same rise in sodium intake causes blood pressure to rise as much as 50 millimeter mercury. This become unable to suppress angiotensin II formation. The use of certain drugs which block the effect of angiotensin has proved to be important clinical for improving the kidney ability to excrete salt and water when angiotensin II formation is blocked with an angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors. You can see here in this diagram. So, excessive angiotensin II does not usually cause large increase in extracellular fluid volume. Increased arterial pressure counterbalances angiotensin II mediated sodium retention. Next is the role of aldosterone in renal excretion. Aldosterone increases sodium reabsorption. By a reduction in the sodium intake, increase angiotensin II stimulate aldosterone secretion, and increase in sodium intake suppresses the aldosterone which decreases the tubular reabsorption, allowing increased sodium excretion. During chronic oversecretion of the aldosterone, the kidney escape from sodium retention as the arterial pressure rises. It is caused by a tumor of the adrenal glands and caused by the Addison disease. The nervous and hormonal other factors are the role of antidiuretic hormone in controlling renal water excretion. So excess antidiuretic hormone secretions usually cause only small increase in extracellular fluid volume but large decreases in sodium concentration. Another factor is the atrial natriuretic peptides. It causes small increase in GFR and decrease in the sodium reabsorptions. There is integrated response to change in the sodium intake when the sodium intake is high. So activation of low pressure receptor reflexes, it can suppress the angiotensin II formation, it stimulates the natriuretic systems and small increase in the arterial pressure. The conditions that cause increase in blood and extracellular fluid volume are increased blood volume and extracellular fluid volume caused by the heart diseases, and increased blood volume caused by the increased capacity of the circulation. So, the other condition that cause large increase in extracellular fluid volume but with normal blood volume, that are in case of the nephrotic syndrome. Loss of in the nephrotic syndrome, general mechanism that lead to extracellular fluid edema. One of the most important clinical cause of edema is the so-called nephrotic syndrome. In nephrotic syndrome, the glomerular capillary leak large amount of protein into the filtrate, and the urine become of increased glomerular capillary permeability. So 30 to 50 gram of plasma protein may be lost in the urine in each day, sometime causing the plasma protein concentration to fall to less than one-third normal. As a consequence of decreased plasma protein concentration, the plasma colloid pressure falls to a low level. This action causes the capillary all over the body to filter large amount of fluids into the various tissue, which in turn causes edema and decrease the plasma volume. So renal sodium retention in the nephrotic syndrome occur through multiple mechanisms activated by leakage of the protein and fluid from the plasma into the interstitial fluids, including stimulation of various sodium retaining systems such as the renin-angiotensin system and aldosterone and the sympathetic nervous system. And the second cause or condition is the liver cirrhosis. So decreased synthesis in the liver cirrhosis, there is decreased synthesis of plasma protein by the liver and sodium retention by the kidney. A small sequence of events occur in the cirrhosis of the liver as in nephrotic syndrome, except that in liver cirrhosis the reduction in plasma protein concentration results from the destruction of liver cell, thus reducing the ability of liver to synthesize enough plasma protein. Cirrhosis is also associated with large amount of fibrous tissue in the liver structure, which greatly impedes the flow of portal blood through the liver. This impedance in turn raises capillary pressure throughout the portal vascular bed, which also contribute the leakage of fluid and protein into the peritoneal cavity, a condition called as the ascites. So this is all about our today's lecture. I hope you will understand. Thanks.